Hey everyone, imagine surviving a mudslide, a mountain fall, a near plane crash, then going to lead a 450-person tech company shaping the future of innovation. That's my guest today. He's the co-founder and CTO of SimVentions, author of Breaking Average, and his new book, Face the Mountain. He is a leader who believes in people, that they are the heart of innovation. Stick around because his story will challenge you to rethink resilience, leadership, and what it truly means to be more than before. Paul Gustafson, welcome to the show, my brother. It is so good to have you on.
Nathan, thank you. Thanks for the intro. Great to be on with you and with your guests. And how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. You know, it's been an interesting past week with everything going on nationally. There's a lot of heat in the nation, and there's a lot of discussion, but you know, what's really interesting is through my time of reflection, it really has been a time of reflection of faith, of where does my faith stand and what goes before me and what will trail behind me. I'm excited to get into your story today because I think there are a lot of things in your story that will really help people right now who are searching really for that next step of what they should be doing with their life. I feel like you are very self-reflective. You spend a lot of time reflecting on where you've been, but also as an innovator, you really do like to cast vision, not only for your life, but for other people of where to go next. So before we jump into maybe even where you are today, actually, let's start there because sometimes I get so far into the beginning of things, I forget to talk about where we are today. You actually started SimVention. Tell everyone a little bit about what that is and what does that mean in terms of leadership and what you do today.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah. So, when I was in college, I'll start there. I think I had this aspiration, this dream, this vision of one day, being an entrepreneur, being a business guy. And you kind of park it, right? Because, you got to graduate, you got to get through school, you got to get through those classes. And, I had some challenges even in college. Obviously I got through that. But I still had this dream kind of parked off to the side, hoping for that one day. And I thought, okay, I don't know when I'm going to do that. Some other things percolated. Obviously, you develop relationships with other folks. And as we're kind of grooming some ideas and pushing those forward, um, I just posed a question with a colleague who actually I was reporting to. We were working on some projects together. And I said, how cool would it be? I don't know. Do you ever have an aspiration to start a business, to build a business based on biblical principles and just go after something? And he said, funny you mentioned that. I was talking to Steve. He asked the same question today. I'm like, what? And I knew Steve pretty well as well. So the three of us got together and I said, hey, look, Microsoft's coming out with something really kind of weird, cool. Maybe, maybe we can take some of our skills and do something with that. And I said, well, what is it? And I said, this thing called Xbox. Sorry, Nathan, you probably have heard of that. So we're a part of the Xbox incubator program early on, before the Xbox even came out. So so I tried to sharpen up my skills and do some stuff there. And we were doing some things there in the simulations and graphics. And we had this game idea. And so we pursued it. We also had a relationship with Kodak. So early on, our business started off kind of from a commercial standpoint. And it was nights and weekends, Nathan. That's what we did because we didn't want to, we all had kids, right? And so we're just trying to do by day what we were hired to do, but also latch onto this dream that three of us had. And we're like, why not? All three of us, let's just do this. So nights and weekends, started working at Kodak software for them, something called PhotoVisor. We did websites, a few of those, and that paid for a trip for us to go out to GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference in 2001. And I forget when it was, what type of year it was, but we had a chance to sit down with Microsoft. We were working on that project with them called the Dokian. So if you ever see a video game called the Dokian, it wasn't us. I'll tell you why. It was a fun project. It was this underground labyrinth, cool video concept that we were working on, but it was a concept. We didn't have a playable version yet, and so we sat down with Microsoft, and they were kind to us, and they said, "Well, this is cool, but you know what? Unless we can play it, we can't buy it. We're not going to be able to go forward with this. We need something demonstratable, playable." And at that time, game engines were really expensive, and we just didn't have the funds to do it. But at least it was kind of a learning experience. Learned a lot about that kind of world. We didn't give up on that initially, but then 9/11 happened. So recently, we just celebrated, and I hate to say that word celebrated. It doesn't sound right. We just remembered. Maybe it's a remembrance. 24 years of 9/11. That day kind of really marked our direction, because while we were doing a lot of software and doing some really cool stuff, we couldn't strap on boots and go out there in harm's way and really defend our nation. But we had this calling. We felt like, wait a minute, we've been kind of in this space of defense for a long time. And maybe our best bet here in terms of who we are and what we need to do is to serve the warfighter and the decision makers, because that freedom is precious, and it's not free, even though it's freedom. There's sacrifices that our men and women in the services are making, but also those, supporting them with different tools and technologies and applications. And we thought, that's the shift we need. Let's
Mm.
make that direction, and we did. And so we've been running ever since. So we went from 3 to 4 to now we're 450 employees about. So
That's crazy.
God's been good. And so we're thankful for that. But that's the story of Simventions.
I love it. Well, it's so cool to see. I find that a lot, especially with people who are entrepreneurs. I was just hearing this recently from another entrepreneur, that if you haven't reinvented what you're doing, you're not an entrepreneur yet. There's always a constant tweaking. There's always something that kind of changes, and being willing to actually shift and innovate. And we've used that word innovate, or I have used that word a lot so far as we've been talking. But I'm curious, have you always been an innovator? Like, who was Paul as a kid?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I don't know when the word innovation really became that term for us as a society, and for me personally. It's a cool word. I love it. It's one of my favorite words. But you
Like
know,
maybe a creative?
yeah, I mean, certainly when I was a kid, I was a Lego kid, right? I give me the Legos. I'd get up at 6 in the morning, turn on Spider-Man, just the cartoon. It's not the same version that you see today. It's
No.
so much better now. But I kicked that on because I would want to watch it at 6 a.m. I was always an early riser,
Mm.
and I would just get going playing with the Legos and creating stuff. Yeah, I remember that. So I would say innovation. There's a part where you pull back, Nathan. There's a part where you are creative, but then you see other kids that are creative, and you're like, well, that's not me, right? I can't draw, I can't do those kind of things that they're doing, and so you kind of peel back. And a few years ago, obviously I wrote another book called Imagine, and when I wrote Imagine, which is probably the most fascinating element of all of this, right? And I can unpack that story a little bit. But I did some research on our imagination.
Mm.
And do you know that the peak of our imagination is between, so when you're born, you're trying to figure things out. And they actually measure the prefrontal frontal cortex in terms of brain activity related to imagination. And it it starts to climb as a young kid to about 12 years old. At 12, it's the peak
Mm.
when you're 12. Then after 12, it starts to slide down. And then it gets to this kind of resting point. I call it the point of really opportunity to break average, right? You mentioned the word breaking average. I think of that line a lot. Like, breaking average is to get above that line,
Mm.
because mediocrity and just status quo thinking, you know, it just keeps us going what we normally do.
Yeah.
But innovative thinking is going to push us like, okay, great. I could do that, but what could I do more? And so when we're young, we actually start to think in an innovative sense, especially by the time we're 12. And then we start to believe that, no, we don't have what it takes. We're not creative. We can't do this. And then we kind of plateau for years. And it
Mm.
just bumps up here and there. Maybe when we start playing with our kids, we get a little creative again, but otherwise it just stays there until close to the end of life. There's this kind of peak that perks back up. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Why is that? Most of those, especially a person of faith, they're probably getting excited about their next home, right? Because they believe in an eternal life, which is cool, and they're excited about potentially seeing a loved one that they've lost, or I'm not sure why, but it does kind of go back up. Not to the level of 12 years old, though.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge for all of us is to think innovatively. We probably need to get back to that 12-year-old self and be willing to try and take risks again. And just because it's not as good as somebody else's, because Sally's drawing is better than yours, doesn't mean that you shouldn't take that risk and that step forward. So just keep being creative. It's okay. Um, Fail fast, right? Failing is the ultimate way to learn.
Mm. And it really is, and it will, and well, maybe even adding one more step that because a lot of people fail and don't learn, and so
Yeah.
that reflective piece to make sure you
Yeah.
don't go back into the cycle of constantly, going back and doing the same thing over and over. We know that definition from Einstein, but there really is a key of life of having curiosity. What was your dream as a young boy? What did you dream of doing, becoming? Was it the astronaut? Was it the drummer? Like what was
Yeah.
in Paul's mind as a young boy?
Okay. Great question. It's funny on all these interviews, nobody's ever asked that question, but it's a good one because we do think about those things. Like, what did I want to be when I was younger? My dad was a Navy guy. All right. So I was born in Illinois. I don't remember much of that. A few stories. We moved to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I lived in Rio. And I remember the first cool Christmas present I got was an astronaut helmet. And I would just wear that every day, right? So Legos and astronauts, right? That's what you know about me, right? But I also was, I love sports, Nathan. I loved sports, so I played just about every sport I could that I was allowed to play. I never played football. I played the other kind of football, a lot of soccer, but um, but I always wanted to play football. It's just that my parents thought, oh, that's going to be a little bit too brutal for you, and they were probably right. You can see all these. We just got done with the weekend's worth of football, and you see a lot of injuries and things like that. And but nonetheless, I love sports, so I think my aspiration was to be a professional athlete.
Mm,
Go that direction. And then my dad being military, I kind of was interested in that as well.
yeah.
So those things.
I love that because it kind of crescendos throughout
Yeah.
your life. Going throughout your life, there are hints of all these pieces. As an astronaut, it's breaking average. It's getting out of the atmosphere. It's using innovation. Especially as you look at someone like an Elon Musk of what they're doing of challenging what the status quo of what we know is possible. So it's actually quite remarkable because in some senses, maybe you're not floating around in space, or I don't know, maybe you're going to go out to the space station one day, Paul, but it is really remarkable to hear some of that stuff because there is some alignment with a lot of the stuff. You may not be in space, but cyber warfare, where a lot of that is actually taking place from a space perspective is quite fascinating. What were you like in terms of socialization as a child? Because I find were you like the outgoing kind of sports person that you shine, or were you kind of more of the team player?
Interesting question. I would think, in the elements of areas of passion, I was fine. I was socially, not a problem at all. But other times I was kind of that quiet kid in the corner, to be
Mm,
honest with you. But if I was out on the field, just enjoying playing with, my teammates, and then I ran track in college, at high school, and a little bit in college. I really enjoyed connecting with other folks there. So it depended upon the situation. Obviously, I was a churchgoer as well. Um, so Sundays were filled in the morning and the evening. But I'll be honest with you, man. Sunday night we would go to church, and I was just itching to come home. Really was. I wanted to watch, and I'm dating myself, so you guys will know how old I am. I wanted to get home to watch the $6 Million Man. That's what I wanted to see. All right. I wanted to see the Bionic Man, right? Because that's the kind of stuff that fascinated me. And my friends, if they were drawn into that, that was cool. I always enjoyed spending time with friends. But also when I was 13, I sat down, again, I'm dating myself. But, do you remember the 1980 Olympics? At least remember hearing about it? Okay, and everybody thinks, "Oh, yeah, Lake Placid, the hockey." Yes, that was phenomenal, miracle on ice, but for me, the magical moment, Nathan, was watching 2 brothers ski
Mm,
for Team USA, Phil and Steve Mayer. Now they're kinda near you, I think. You're in Northwest, right?
yeah, Portland
Alright,
area.
so you should reach out to these guys, they're still going. But, Phil and Steve Mayer, and, they had a chance for a medal for USA, and they were going against Ingemar Stenmark, alright? He was the best slalom skier in the world. Now, unfortunately, Steve had already been knocked out, he was eliminated, but Phil was still in it and had a chance for a medal. And so we're kinda tuned in, the whole family, we got the popcorn popped, we're eating Cheez-Its, whatever, Cheetos, and we're just watching this. And this is like almost the last sports activity of that 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. And just now, here's the truth of it: it wasn't live; it was ABC. And back in the day, you would watch sports, and it was always a delayed broadcast. It wasn't like typically what we see today. So, but for us, it felt real. We're crowded around our television watching this. Phil has a really good first run. He's got a second run. They always do on the final day. They do 2 runs, and he's got a time. He could potentially get a gold medal. And so they go to a commercial break, and I'm like, oh, great. All right. Sure enough, commercial break. And then they come out of the commercial break. We're ready for Phil to ski a second run. But they said, hey, we're about to watch Phil on a second run. But before we do, here's a but, right? Before we do, we had a chance to sit down and with Phil earlier, and we want to show you that interview. And it's an interview, and it was at the top of the mountain, and I forget who the announcer was, and he's saying, "Hey, Phil, tell us a little bit about it. What's it like up here?" And they're talking about the conditions, and he said, "Phil, what do you do? How do you prepare for this race? What do you do?" And Phil said something that stuck with me for the rest of my life. He said, "I imagine the race from start to finish. I visualize every turn, every gate, every element of that mountain. And I ski that mountain in my mind before I actually ski it physically. If I if I don't do that, I can't have my best run." And then, of course, then they go to Phil. He runs pretty well. He does good, but he doesn't quite do as well as Ingemar Stenmark. So he gets the silver. But still, that thing about imagining, it was the first time I heard a pro athlete talk about using their imagination to
Mhm.
visualize how they perform. And I thought, wow, this is it. That's what first stuck with me. That's why I wrote the book, Imagine. I was like, this is a fascinating topic about imagination. And I reached out to Phil a few years ago, and he responded back, and he shared how powerful that was for him and his brother. In fact, 4 years after the 1980 Olympics, and I can find the clip for you if you want it. There's Phil and Steve, the 2 brothers. They're sitting next to each other, but they're not talking to each other. They're actually moving their hands back and forth, and they're visualizing and imagining the whole race,
Mhm.
both of them, their own race. And in that race, it's so cool. because those two brothers, the guys that that aspired to get a medal in 1980, they only got the silver. The two brothers get gold and silver in the 1984 Sarajevo games. And it's
Wow.
so cool just to see that, you know. So anyway, that element, that was an important element for me too. And you asked about this socialization thing, but I wanted to just share me connecting with friends, watching the game, seeing sports, whether it's skiing or football or whatever it is, basketball. I love that element. So
Yeah, and I can relate so well with that because growing up for me, if there was something athletic or physical, I wanted to be in it. And much like you, my parents would not let me play football. Well, they let me do karate for some reason, but they didn't let me do football. But there is something about sports that it really does. Um, Help you with a competitiveness and a drive for life, but it also does, especially team sports, it really does bring in this aspect of working well with others. You know, if we look at your life, I am curious on the earlier side of life. What who were some of your most impactful mentors in your life? Whether you knew they were mentors to you, I know your folks were for quite some time. Really, I mean, still even now probably. Were mentors to you, but what were some of those mentoring moments that you remember early on to this day? I love that you talk about Phil and Steve, just that left a mark on you, even people that you didn't even have that interaction with. But who were some of those early on mentors that you recall going, man, the lesson that they taught me then is so applicable now today. It ages well.
yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Those mentors in our life, I mean, always, always have a mentor in your life. Um, that would be my number one action item for anybody is, make sure you have a mentor near you. Um, I had, I didn't realize there were mentors early on. Obviously, the parents, unfortunately, my dad passed away in 2007, but he was my main mentor. And then when he passed, um, I needed to fill that gap. And that's why I connected with the John Maxwell team and all that. I'll tell you how cool would that be to have John Maxwell be a mentor in my life, and through that, I saw him a couple weeks ago, and I saw him, and I said, Scotty Fay, you are you are on my Mount Rushmore of mentors.
Mm.
And he was like, what? And I said, you are, man. And because he really kind of walked through some stuff, because he's an entrepreneur, business guy, and it really connected with me and some of his stuff that he taught. But earlier than that, right? Obviously, we talked about parents. I had Coach Bergen, Jack Bergen, who was a speechwriter for Casper Weinberger. He was my soccer coach. Phenomenal guy. He was definitely a mentor. Uh, m- so John and Mike Bergen, if you're listening, your dad was, and hopefully your dad's still alive, but your dad was such an impact guy for me. But the other one was Lieutenant Colonel Tom Hemingway, right? So when I was 17, um, for a summer, I worked at this camp called Spring Canyon, and he was the camp director. And there's not a day that doesn't go by where I don't remember something that he shared with me. And there's a story behind it, but let me just tell you, one of the things that he taught all of us, and he taught anybody that went through there, was something called the three C's. All right, the three C's. He said, if you aspire for these things, you'll be able to lead well. If you aspire for these things, you'll be able to add value and make impact for others. And the three C's were, number one was just competence, just building your skills, just getting good. You don't start off good. Nobody does. Competence is something you build. It's nurtured. It's not natural,
Mm.
right? Now you may think, well, I got a natural skill for K2. No, you got to keep building it. Even if you have a natural skill, you got to keep building it. Competence. And then the second one is courage. So the second C is courage. Like there's an opportunity, and what we need to do to face whatever we're facing is courage. And then the third C is compassion.
Mm.
And those three things combined together allow us to lead well. Competence, courage, and compassion. And so I remember that. But what I remember him most for, not just the three C's, and later in life, I found out where he got those three C's. So it's really interesting. But what I remember most, though, is what he's told me. You mentioned to start off about me going down a mudslide. Wasn't quite a mudslide, but it's close. So I climbed this mountain. I love going to Colorado. It's one of my favorite places to go, even though I live here in Virginia. And I had been staring at this mountain all summer long. That same summer that I was at Spring Canyon, where Tom Hemingway was camp director. And there's this peak on there called the Hook. Now, it's not the upper hook of Mount Princeton. It's one of the lower hooks, but it's something that draws you.
Mm.
And we have been talking about, like, can we climb it? Have people climb it? Oh, yeah, you can climb it. And so the challenge was this for us, me and another guy. We're going to try to climb this thing. We're going to hit breakfast early, and then we're going to get back by lunch. Nobody's ever done that before. We're not going to miss a meal. We're going to climb this mountain. So we get started, get going, no problem. It's a longer story than probably I can have time to tell, but basically we're able to get to that hook. Now, what happened along the way was we kind of got separated, because when you're climbing a hill like that, a mountain like that, you can't really directly follow another person sometimes, especially if you're doing it without ropes. All right. So we went on a parallel track, and he found a better line and got to the ridge line a little bit faster than I did. So he gets to the hook before I do, takes a look, comes back down. I'm just coming up. He says, should I wait for you? And I said, no, you can make it to lunch. I won't be far behind you. Now, those are words I would later regret.
Mm.
So he keeps going. I go up to the hook. There's a little book. I signed the book. I take a look. It's beautiful. Come back down. As I'm coming down, I'm about halfway down the mountain, and there's a scree field. Now, a scree field is this very steep, rocky terrain area. And we had gone through it earlier, no problem, but it was cooler then than it was at the time I was stuck. The ground it felt kind of like marshmallow, kind of like quicksand a little bit. It didn't feel the same. And so I'm like, okay, great, this isn't good. And sure enough, I took a little lateral step to the side, and the whole mountain just broke free, basically, or at least I did. And I just started sliding down that thing, and rocks started following me down. And I knew what was below me was nothing but a graveyard of trees and boulders.
Mm.
And I just, I was praying out. I was doing everything I could, just everything I could to stop. And somehow, miraculously, I stopped about 40 feet away from hitting that graveyard. But still, there was still a trail of rocks and other things tumbling over me. So I got banged up pretty good, concussed. Leg was just shredded, man. It was bad. Somehow I got off that mountain, wandered back to camp. I looked like an extra out of a Rambo set. It was not pretty. And then I walk into the dining room. I missed lunch. And there was somebody coming out cleaning. He had a rag to clean the table. He saw me as I came up the stairs, and he realized the rag wasn't for the table. It was for me. So he came and cleaned me up and gave me some water. And then about an hour later, Tom Hemingway came by just to check on me, to see how I was doing. And once he heard my story, he said, this is what he said to me. He said, you could have lost your life on that mountain today. I said, yeah, came close. He said, you realize that every day is a gift? I'm like, what? Yeah, every day is a gift going forward. The question is what are you going to do with that gift?
Mm.
And that, I think about that almost every single day, to be honest with you.
Mm.
Now, the truth of it was, before that slide and that fall, Nathan, my aspirations were big. I was going to go either Air Force Academy or Naval Academy. I was going to be a professional athlete. I was going to do all these other, I was going to climb every 14er in Colorado if I could. But that scared me to that slide scared me to death.
Mm.
Now, those words were powerful, but it didn't necessarily move me till later.
Hmm.
All right. Because I was timid. At that point, I was like, okay, yeah, the mountains, those 14ers, they look good right there. I'll just stay right here. I'll just look at them from over here. Sports, I mean, I did do some track after that, continued that, but my aspiration was different as far as being a professional athlete.
Mm.
Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, I'll just go to a regular university. So I kind of took a back seat for a while.
Mm.
I kind of just parked it for a bit. And then that fire kind of fueled back up my senior year, my last semester of college. I realized, what am I doing? I'm just living status quo. I settled for average, and that's it. I can't do this anymore. I got to be who I am, and so and I got to remind myself of that, of continue on that. Those 3 C's that Tom Hemingway taught me that summer of competence, courage. I wasn't taking the courage, right? Compassion. Maybe I had some of that, but courage, I wasn't playing that part.
Mm.
And so every day is a gift. What am I doing with it? So that's the question I ask myself, and really the question I'll ask anybody is, hey, look, every day's a gift. What are you doing with it?
I love it because even within the past couple years, the question of what are you doing with your day to make a difference in the world? Like every day really is a gift, and even going at the molecular level of like every breath is a gift. That's something that I've reflected on a lot, even within the past year or so, of just every single breath, every word that you speak. Sometimes in the evening, I lay down and it drives my wife nuts, but I'll take these huge breaths in and I'll exhale and do a couple, and then I'll do a long extended breath hold. And what's really interesting is when you're not breathing, you really desire air. There's something precious about a breath, and when you measure your life in a breath, that it could gone in a second. It really does give different perspective, and I'm curious for you because you've had a lot of near death experiences. Like I know people who have had a near death experience, one or two of them, but it seems like you've had quite a few of them in your life. what what
Yeah.
what have you learned from not just one near death experience, but multiple near death experiences in your life?
Well, yeah, I think what I've learned is, first of all, that I really, I'm a person of faith, and I think God protects us in ways that we don't even know. Um, that there are moments that happen in our life that maybe are closer than you think. I mean, we're one breath away from, sometimes one step away, and so I'm so thankful that God still has. We're all here for a reason. We're more resilient than we realize.
Yeah.
Despite any near death kind of experiences that anybody has, including myself, we're still here for a reason. And so it's a wake up call, right? Every time we ponder back and think about those moments, I think it's a wake up call to realize, you know what? Let's step forward. Let's go. We're still here. Let's learn from what we can. Let's not make it. It's not nor it's not because of clumsiness. It's just there are some things that happen in life. Circumstances happen. What makes your life aren't the circumstances, but it's the decisions you make in the midst of those circumstances.
Mm,
That's where life is made on those decision points in the midst of the challenges that happen.
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I love the man in the arena, right? Teddy Roosevelt. So Teddy Roosevelt, I think it was in 1907. He's on the world tour, right? He's already been president of the United States, and 2 years earlier he won the Nobel Peace Prize, but he didn't pick it up. So he's finally off to go get his Nobel Peace Prize, and he gets invited. He books a stop at Sorbonne University in Paris, and he gives a speech. It's the most infamous speech of all time. It's called "Citizens of the Republic," and in that speech, there's a segment of it that's now called the Man in the Arena segment, right? So I don't have it in front of me, but I'm gonna I'm gonna suggest to your listeners and watchers go check it out. The Man in the Arena, and in there he talks about um, the challenge that we face, that we all step in this arena, and that we can be bloody and dusty, just kind of like me coming off that mountain, right? And he talks about three different types of individuals. There's the gladiator, that's you and me, but then there's also the spectator, right? Just watching, observing. That's what I did for a bit there. I told you I just kind of settled for average. That's spectating. And then there's the critic. So the three different types of individuals he's talking about is the gladiator, the spectator, and the critic. And the critic is the one who says, "Why would you do that?" Right? We had some critics early on when we tried to start SimVentions. I've had lots of critics. You know, how are you going to do that? Why would you do that? And we've got to flip that. Sometimes that critic is ourselves, by the way. Sometimes we are our own worst critic, and that doesn't serve us at all. So how can we, instead of be the critic, how can we be, how can we coach ourselves, or how can we put other people around us, or remind ourselves, you know what, every day is a gift. What am I going to do with it? And step
Mm,
forward with that, right? Seek out, competence is something that's nurtured. Seek out that competence. How can I take a step of courage? How can I show compassion for others? The three C's that we mentioned earlier.
mm,
So I think that's powerful. And one of the lines in there has probably been the most impactful line for me that's non-scripture. He says this, he says, "There is no effort without error and shortcoming." There
mm,
is no effort without error or shortcoming. And the reality is that when we do fail, and we fail often, the tendency is to be, okay, I give up. I'm done. I quit. Right?
yeah.
Nathan, that happens. All of us, we feel that. Doesn't necessarily mean that we do. But if we just remember, hey, well, there's no effort without error or shortcoming. So,
Mm,
like in this room that I'm in right now, I remember as I was working on this, trying to put up some paneling that you can see back there, I was having some struggles, but I didn't stop. I just reminded myself there's no effort without error or shortcoming, and I figured out a way to get it done. Right. Same in life for all of us. Same in life for all of us. There is no effort without error and shortcoming. So I really find that that's a powerful, that whole speech is powerful, by the way.
mm. Definitely,
So,
definitely. If you're listening, go listen to what he's talking about. Like, there's so many things that you've said, even thus far, and we still have a little bit more time, but there are so many nuggets of wisdom that you've just collected over the years, and I love it. And by the way, make sure you go check out his wonderful line of books, because they're packed with just the same amount, if not more, wisdom of what you're listening to right now. And I love this idea that you were just talking about, that there's a resilience that we all have. But there are points in life where, there's the moments of resilience where you go, oh, I've got to be resilient. I got to keep going. But then there's also
yeah,
moments in life that they just hit differently. There's
sure.
there is that moment of struggle, but then there's also a continuous struggle sometimes. When you were 48, you had a diagnosis that really shifted this idea of resilience,
Oh, yeah.
of not just a, like, this is a moment that I have to get through, but this is something now that I will carry and need to continue to move through.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how
Sure.
does life shift when it's no longer a, hey, let's get through this moment, but now it's, hey, let's continue to bear this cross as we move forward?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. so much to tell on that, but I'll just kind of get to the heart of it. So what Nathan's referring to is I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS, and that was, I talked earlier about imagination, right? Imagination is the most powerful muscle you have. It's either going to lift you or limit you. That was a moment in my life initially where it definitely limited me. I was in a dark space. I was thinking the worst, right? And then what do we do when we get a diagnosis like that? You jump on the internet and you start searching and you find out all the things that could go wrong, might go wrong, will go wrong. That's where I was at for a little bit. And then I'm still struggling with it. This is early on. I was still struggling with it. And I remember going in to get a steroid injection. Okay. Now, here's how it all took place. Why did they need a steroid injection? I lost vision in my left eye, and I didn't know what it was. And then when I went in, the ophthalmologist said, "Oh, you have optic neuritis. That's a sure tell sign of MS." That's what he told me. I went and got an MRI. Sure enough, MS. So the eye still wasn't working right. So I go into I go in to get a steroid injection because they're trying to get the left eye going again. They think, well, we can get it going again. And the nurse says to me, she asks, well, what are you in here for? Now, most people where I was at, they're going for chemo, and I have a heart and passion for those folks that have going through that challenge. And so I'm there in the midst of them, and we're just trying to encourage each other. And just, gosh, there's some amazing people out there who are going through some tough challenges who just will pour. They will talk about compassion. They'll cheer you up. This nurse, and nurses as well. This nurse asked me why I'm in there, and I tell her, I said I got optic neuritis, MS, and she says this initially. Oh dear. That usually is not the best way to start, but she says, oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that. We had a lady in here not too long ago, maybe a half a year ago. Same thing, optic neuritis, MS. And now she's sheltered at home and she can no longer walk.
Mm.
Now, that's not what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
But it was the setup for something that I did need to hear. So then she said, but wait, there's more. I'm like, oh, great. There's more. I'm thinking,
it's going to continue to go downward.
Yeah, remember, I was in a dark space. Then she said to me, she says, Paul, there was two other men that came in here. They didn't know each other, but they became fast friends. And they both had the same thing, MS. But guess what? They now run 5Ks, 10Ks, and half marathons. They didn't give up hope. And the story she was telling me is that one gal, and, I hope she's okay now, but she kind of gave up hope and she sheltered at home. The other two didn't give up hope and they're running 5Ks, 10Ks, and half marathons. I want that hope, right? So that really has helped me through all of this, is just to remind myself, you know what, every day is a gift. What am I doing with it? So yeah, I've got MS, but MS doesn't have me. So I'm just working through it, trying to take care of my body the best I can. I could probably take care of it better, but I'm doing all right. So I just want to encourage, the MS story, I think is something that hopefully will encourage other people through it. And, who knows what happens to me in the future, but I'm still here now. I'm not going to worry about what happens in the future. I've got today. So let's take care of today.
I love that. There really is something to be said about living in the moment and not the YOLO, type of lifestyle of like, I'm going to do whatever I want because you never know what might happen. It's living intentionally. A mentor of ours has talked about intentional living for a number of years. But until, certain things happen in your life, you don't really grasp the concept of intentional living, of why it's so important to intentionally live in a specific way, not intentionally plan out, because as you and I both know, our plans don't always go exactly the way we want it. I do want to ask you this question because, as a father, you learn a lot about your kids growing up, and they teach you a lot about yourself too. But I'm curious, you have two older boys. They have their own things going on in life. They're doing well. I'm curious, what are you learning from your boys right now in life?
I've both my, our kids are different, right? I think I probably speak to most parents that are watching this, right? Your children, they're not the same. They're different. And there's something to learn from them, right? And they're learning from you. First of all, they're learning from you as a dad or a mom. And so continue to model that out. But the truth of it is that you're learning from them too. And especially as they get into that adult age, it's an opportunity for you to say, you know what, here's the impact that you've made in my life. And I want to thank you for that. So for my oldest son, Michael, if you're watching this, you know the impact you've made for me, through his challenges, his own physical challenges. He taught me the meaning of not giving up, right? Like, you know what, there's ways around it, no matter what. I'm reminded of, as I'm sharing this, I'm reminded of an old movie, a Pixar movie called A Bug's Life. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And there's a
Classic.
leaf that kind of floats down early on in the movie, and it lands on the ground, and all these ants, worker bee ants, that are carrying payloads to the
Oh
sacrifice.
no, where's the line?
Yeah, yeah, they're all messed up. And so there's this leaf that falls down, like, oh no, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And then the leader ant says, do not panic, do not panic, go around the leaf. And he always found a way around the leaf, despite all the different challenges that he had. And he just, his ability just to overcome stuff, that's been really impactful for me. For Ryan, he's probably more creative. He's my youngest. I just love the fact that he's rediscovering his creativity that he thought, remember I told you at 12, he kind of, and I think he was up above the line, way above the line early on. And he's got that creative juice back again, which I love to see. So that excites me. And it just reminds me, like, you know what, we're never too old to be creative, no matter who we are. So even though he's only in his 20s, right? We think once we're done with high school, well, that's it. I'm not the creative type. No, actually, you're never too old. You're never too young, and you're never too old to be creative.
Yeah,
So
there really is something about this concept of the adult learning brain. And there, in the world that you and I live in, there's a lot of learners, people that are passionate about learners. They want to know more every single day. They want to become a little bit better. And it's interesting because when I was growing up, it was kind of not common to find someone who loved to learn, people who love to learn and grow and develop themselves. And I always thought to myself growing up, like, this is really strange. Like, I'm weird because I want to grow, I want to learn, I want to become the best version of myself. And my parents weren't necessarily the ones of, like, listening to Tony Robbins and those kinds of things. But there was something deep down inside of me where I wanted to progress. I wanted to learn.
yes,
And something that is so beautiful about what you were just saying is, that I love the Bug's Life picture, by the way. Like, you hit the leaf. And I
yeah,
remember very distinctly as you were saying this, like, follow me. And the if you go watch the movie, it's so memorable to me right now. I can see it. The ant puts both hands forward and says, look into my eyes, follow me, don't look away. Just follow me. And he slowly brings everyone back to the line. There
yeah,
are people in the world that are really good at that. There's a lot of chaos going on, and they say, look at me, follow me. Just
yeah,
just keep your eyes on me and let's keep going this way. Focus is a really important aspect
yeah,
of life. And in the world that we live in, our focus is pulled left and right all over the place. Even just sitting here, for a brief moment, right now it's 5 o'clock in the morning here. And even when I woke up this morning at 3 o'clock, my attention was being pulled by my phone or by other things, not even just digital things, but our attention is always being pulled away.
Yeah.
What have you learned about the importance of focus on and having a clear vision on purpose and desire moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love it. Um, wow. And first of all, kudos to you, man, getting up for this, 5 o'clock. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Um, it just shows, by the way, it just shows the passion that you have for people and adding value. And I appreciate that so much. Focus, is a great word. I love it. Um, Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. So when we were talking about, you know, taking opportunities of the day that we have in front of us, it doesn't mean neglecting there's two elements. There's strategy and there's tactical, like what we do right now every day. We got to eat and all that. And then there's strategic. So we got to think strategically. Each day, think strategically. Each day, think strategically. And so for me, focus means, all right, okay, if I need to think strategically, what are the things that need to be done? All right. And I use something called a Kanban board.
Mm,
Or are you familiar with that? A
yeah.
Scrum board, right? And what happens is I can easily get distracted. Like the scroll on social media is probably the worst thing ever, right? Because I'll get distracted. But the same is true in life, right? There's a lot of noise, a lot of things that are happening. How do you collect that? How do you stay focused and get done what you need to get done? So what I have on my Kanban board, just for all your viewers and listeners, is 3 columns. Actually, I have 4 columns. I'll describe them each. First column is called a to-do column. It's just like what you think, nothing special, but it is a little different. So the to-do column is, okay, there's something I got to do. Maybe somebody's giving me a task. They've put a monkey on my back and I've got to go take care of that. Whatever it is, I'll add that to my to-do list. And I won't give it a second thought. I'll just throw it over there. It doesn't mean I'm doing it. I just threw it over there. All right. We call it in the software world, we call it a product backlog. The next column is called a doing column. Now, these are the things that I'm doing. And guess what, Nathan? I only have up to 3 items on a good day. Now, they're bad. There are days where I go off the reservation. So I'm human. But there's only 3 things I only have on there at one time, max. 1 to 3 things. Because if I put more things on there than I ought, man, I'm going to lose focus right away because that's a lot of things happening, right? We're on these amazing computers that have, gosh, a gazillion apps up right now and tabs up on your right? Chrome. And it's so easy to get distracted, right? Or the news alert happens, or as a moment ago, my phone rings. I had it in my pocket. I should have not had my phone in my pocket, right? Easy to get distracted. Okay. But that doing column, if I just focused on those 3 things, the things that matter most, that need my attention, that need to be done, not worrying about the other things on the to-do list. Let me get those 3 things done. And then I have a third column called done. So when I'm done with that, all right, this is a whiteboard. I've got one up in the corner over here. I got one in the office. I'll write down what I accomplished. There's a kind of a neurochemical, it's just, it fires me up to see what I've done. That oxytocin, that element of that, that's really cool when you accomplish something.
Yeah.
I have a 4th column in there called daily schedule. All right. And I need that for myself, but I really need that for other people too, if they're coming into my office, because if I don't lay out my schedule, I mean, yeah, we all have our phones and our calendars there, but I need a physical space and a place just to remind myself of what's coming up on the day. right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's 7 o'clock here, East Coast. So I've got that, right? 7 o'clock, boom, Nathan. All right. So those are the kind of things that I do. That really helps get focused for me. And and every day I look back at that to-do list. I may not have gone through that whole to-do list in one day. In fact, if I had, then I probably wasn't as efficient as I needed to be or as effective. Efficient and effective are two different things. All right. Effective means, okay, I really did something there that added value to, and efficient might be, well, I just checked the box. That's not really efficient. That's to me, there's a lot more to it. So I'll go back and look at my to-do list, what's left on the board, and then pick and choose what needs to be done. What's most important.
I love it. One of the things that you've talked about before, and I want to touch on this because, first of all, systems are really important to have in life. There's a lot of people that go through life that don't use a system at all. Well, let's just say this. They have a system they don't know exists in their life, and it's not necessarily serving them. For you, you have something called the flywheel. And I'd love for you to unpack this just a little bit. I know we're almost at that time here, but let's go through the most complicated.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Tell everyone about the flywheel, specifically how you use that in
Yeah,
your own life, and then why it's important for other people to have something like that in their life that is an easy go-to. This is how I operate.
yeah. This is. I remember seeing my wife go through this process. But basically, Jim Collins, Good to Great, right? Are you familiar with?
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. Built to Last. He uh, he came up with this flywheel concept based on research. I love it. I heard him earlier this year too at a Dave Ramsey event talking about the flywheel, and I feel like this is probably one of the more effective tools. We talked about focus. This is the other element of focus that I've been using more recently. Very helpful. A flywheel is something that's going to build momentum for you. My flywheel, and yours may be different, should be different, right? So my flywheel that I have is number one, cast vision. So that's the first item in it, right? Because I think every great story begins with imagination. All right. Cast vision. That's why I wrote the book Imagine. Then the second one is communicate truth. Communicate truth. All right. Um, my thought is that vision only lasts if it's clearly shared. So, the Bible says, without vision, the people perish. Well, that vision needs to be communicated. So, we got to communicate truth. And number three is choose impact. Choose impact. All right. And yeah, so big dreams demand collaboration. So I can't do this by myself. I need Nathan. I need other people in my life. We get to share with you guys today some thoughts and ideas, but he obviously has a platform allowing me to share this stuff with you right now. But really, there's opportunities that we each have. Choose impact, but it requires collaboration. The fourth one is cultivate faith and grit. Now, I'm a person of faith. I truly believe it. I've had too many experiences in my life to show me and reveal to me that God is real. And our country, I think, needs more than any time ever. We need to kind of step forward with faith, and that for me, that's I'm just praying for our country. At the time that we're recording this, we had some really tragic events that happened here in the United States, and that's tough. But we get to cultivate faith and grit. I think faith and grit are paired together.
Mm,
You can't have faith without grit. You can't really shouldn't have grit without faith. And perseverance fuels momentum.
mm,
So that's my fourth. So this flywheel just kind of goes around. The last bit before we come back to cast vision is change the world. We get to have an impact on the world and change the world. Every mountain you face, all right. So my book, Face the Mountain, the most recent. Every mountain you face is an invitation to grow. It's an invitation to grow. So it's like the man in the arena. So, and then we come back to cast vision again. right? Cast vision, communicate truth, choose impact, cultivate faith and grit, change the world. So
Mm. I love it, and it's the visualization of the flywheel is really impactful, and I love that you brought that up. You know, the Good to Great book. I looked over from. I was like, I'm pretty sure. Yep, it's right there. I literally have it over on my shelf right over here,
I got
and
this right there. See that?
yeah.
Yeah.
But the flywheel, it's such it looks so simple, but yet it is so impactful in its execution and how it works. And having that momentum builder in your life is important. And if you don't know what that momentum builder is, that's definitely something that both Paul and I would encourage you to take some time to figure that out today. What are the things that you can focus on that are going to build that momentum up? Like he said, it may not be exactly what Paul thinks. It may not be exactly what Nathan thinks or what Nathan needs. But you have a flywheel in your car, and the thing that you're driving right now, your life, and you got to figure out what that is. Paul, I have one more question here for you. But before I ask it, I want to encourage each and every one of you listening right now to go check out the Breaking Average podcast with Paul Gustafson and his quirky friend Barry Smith. I love Barry. I like to give that guy a hard time. But go check out the podcast. It truly is a great listen because they talk about some heavy subjects, but they also have a ton of fun talking, communicating, sharing ideas. It's not the normal podcast. I feel like usually it's like super serious with one podcast, or it's really funny with another one. Like they have a really great amalgamation of both of levity, but both also of growth and learning. So go check out that podcast, the Breaking Average podcast. Make sure you also go and get a copy of Paul's newest book, Face the Mountain. It really is powerful. He even talked about a couple of the concepts that we were talking about today of the 3 C's. So make sure you go grab a copy of that book too. Paul, there are a lot of people who just lack self-belief. They lack the belief in themselves on who God has really created them to be. You know, you and I would look at them and we say, wow, you have amazing gifts. You have amazing talents. And we see them, we go, use those, go out, make a difference in the world, go make a splash, fail forward. And yet there's still this struggle, this internal struggle. What is your advice to maybe one from the people that want to communicate to those people their value? But 2, what would you say to that person that maybe wrestles with this idea of, I don't feel like I have something that I bring to the table. I don't feel like I have a gift that is going to, make a difference in someone's life. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one I think all of us. First of all, I would say to anybody who's been there, hey, we've all wrestled with that. We have all wrestled with that. That feeling of inadequacy, not enough, that we don't have what that person has, and so forth and so on. That's something I think every one of us has faced and experienced. And I just lean into you and like, you know what, you're made for this, right? My favorite phrase is built for this. And there's this element of confirmation bias that can actually, typically we see the negative stuff and we confirm that we can't do something. But what if we flip the switch the other way and are like, you know what? Go in with the idea and the mentality, just even if you half believe it, that you do have what it takes, that you're built for this. Because you wouldn't be here otherwise. There's a purpose and a reason for you to be on this planet, all of us. What is that? Well, it's hard to figure that out, but just recognize the fact that there's going to be opportunities for you. And here's the deal. Here's what happens every single day. Every single day is that there are something that I call divine appointments. There are moments that happen. There's going to be encounters that you have with other people that you didn't expect, that weren't necessarily on your schedule, wasn't on your appointment, wasn't on your calendar. Now you're going to talk to somebody. It might be you go to the local convenience store and you pick up something there and you see just a person at working the register. I don't know, but there's going to be some unbelievable, amazing experiences. You're made for this. You're built for this. Look for those opportunities just to encourage them. Remember the 3 C's. And if anything else, start with the third one, compassion. Show compassion to somebody else. You know what? Because our world needs it. They need your compassion. That means kind of hearing them out. Seek to understand before being understood. I would start with that. But show compassion, because if you show that kindness to somebody else, that might be just what they need. They may be going through a really bad day, and you can just show them just a little bit of ounce of just kindness and gratitude. Wow. All right. And with that, because you have compassion, I think courage kind of gets triggered, right? That's the second C. So I'm going to actually walk through these backwards. That second C, that gives you a little bit of courage, right? That's going to give you a little bit more of a bounce in your step to be able to do that next, because there's going to be another divine appointment. Something else is going to happen. All right. And then competence starts to build, right? Confidence comes through that learning process. So when we just start working through it, we realize, wait a minute, I've got something. You do have something. Each of us has something. One of my favorite tools is Lencioni's Working Genius. I would encourage you to go through that. You have some genius in you. For me, I'm I and W, innovation or invention and wonder. Those are my areas. There's other areas that drain me a little bit. It doesn't mean that I can't do it. It just means that it just zaps me a little bit more. But find your working genius. Take time. So I'm plugging Lencioni's book, Working Genius, just as assessment. He's got an assessment test. I think that will help you. I've got one as well, because I believe it, and this is before Lencioni did his. I think there's 3 types of Imagineers, right? So an Imagineer, I think you're either a dreamer, a designer, or an implementer. And we're one of those 3 things. All right. And just explore that. Find time to explore what those are, because you have some strengths. But go in there, look for those divine appointments. And at the end of the day, and as you review the tape to see, oh, how was my day? Think about those divine appointments that took place, the connections that you had with other individuals. Those are meaningful, So yeah, that's what I would encourage folks to do.
Absolutely powerful. And go back and listen to even just the last 5 minutes of what we've been talking about, because it's such a powerful message. And Paul, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom. I love this idea that you're built for this, but not only that you're built for this, but you're being developed for that. Catch that you were built for this moment right now. Everything in your past has led you up to this point. Every pain, every piece that you've had to overcome has brought you to a place right now that you were built for every situation that you're going through currently right now. But that's not the end point. You're also being developed for that of the future, of what is to come. And so remember that it's not just about where you are today. It's about overcoming today to continue to pursue and move towards what is coming tomorrow, to become more than before, because that's what we've been talking about here, Paul and I. It's not about just today, but it's also about moving forward to what you're going to do. And God is developing you for something wonderful, something amazing, to speak into someone's life, to make a difference, whether it's the gas station attendant, whether it's the person that's bagging groceries at the store, or whether it's someone that you see every single day that you don't know that you're having an impact in their life. So, Paul, this has been such a wonderful time. I really do appreciate you coming on the program. Make sure you go check out all of Paul's content, share and like this episode of the podcast. It really does help. And I would love to share Paul's story with the world. So let's get it out there. Share, like, subscribe. Until next time, remember to be more, see more, and experience more than before.